Lesson 3. The Self According to Modern and Contemporary Philosophers. Introduction. This lesson is focused on what modern and contemporary philosophers claim about the self. Modern philosophers include René Descartes, John Locke, Immanuel Kant, while the representative contemporary philosophers are Merleau-Ponty, Gilbert Ryle, and Paul Churchland. Modern-day philosopher Descartes, 1596 to 1650. The self is an immaterial mind and material body with his ties to dualism. Descartes believed that the mind is the set of consciousness. The body, which includes the human sense, is unreliable, hence should not be trusted. One can have ideas a priori to experience. This secondary position of the body to the mind or to the soul is unifying thread among Descartes, Plato, Aristotle, Augustine, and Thomas. Descartes is known for his "I think, therefore I am." The rationality and activity of the mind are the center of man's being.
The idea of the self is a combination of an immaterial mind and material body. Is rooted in dualism, a philosophy that distinguishes between mind and matter. Descartes is a prominent philosopher, believed that the mind is the source of consciousness and is therefore more important than the body, which is unreliable and cannot be fully trusted. Descartes also believed that the mind can have innate ideas, which are ideas that exist independently of experience. This concept of priori knowledge suggests that the mind is not simply a passive receiver of sensory information from the body, but an active participant in shaping human experience. The secondary position of the body to the mind or soul is a common thread among several philosophical traditions, including Plato, Aristotle, Augustine, and Thomas. Descartes is perhaps best known for his statement, "I think, therefore I am," which emphasized the central role rational and active mind in defending human existence. René Descartes, 1596 to 1650, was a creative mathematician of the first order, an important scientific thinker, and an original metaphysician. During the course of his life, he was a mathematician first, a natural scientist or natural philosopher, second, a metaphysician, third, in mathematics. He developed the techniques that made possible algebraic or analytic geometry. In natural philosophy, he can be credited with several specific achievements: co-farmer of the sine law of refraction, developer of an important empirical account of the rainbow, and proposer of a naturalistic account of the formation of the earth and planets, a precursor to the nebular hypothesis. More importantly, he offered a new vision of the natural world that continues to shape our thoughts today, a world for matter possessing a few fundamental properties and interacting according to few universal laws.
René Descartes was a highly influential figure in mathematics, natural philosophy, and metaphysics. His most significant contributions were in the field of the mathematics, where he developed the techniques for algebraic or analytic geometry. In natural philosophy, he achieved several notable accomplishments, including co-framing the sine law of refraction and proposing a naturalistic account of the formation of the earth and planets. However, his most important contribution was his new vision of the natural world, which emphasized a world of matter with fundamental properties and interactions governed by universal laws. This perspective continues to shape our understanding of natural world today. For discussion, number 1, we can find in ourselves the answer to our question by introspection, break down the problem. We just need a quiet word, a rational mind. There is a such thing, beauty of quiet reflection. Is this advice in keeping with Descartes' concept of the self? Why or why not? For me, the advice to find answers through introspection and quiet reflection is similar to Descartes' concept of the self, but there are some differences. Descartes believed in the existence of a thinking self that is separate from the physical body, while introspection emphasizes the importance of sensory experience as a way to access the inner self. Additionally, while Descartes saw the mind in active agent in pursuit of knowledge, introspection, emphasis that they need to quiet the mind in order to access the inner self. Number 2, commit to work at an independent, rationally founded vision of existence by doing away with emotional confusion, prejudice, and unhealthy tradition. Do you think Descartes will advise you this? This statement appears to suggest that in order to lead an independent and rational life, one should avoid being swayed by emotions, prejudice, and unhealthy traditions. It's not clear whether Descartes would have specially advised this, as his philosophy focused on using reason in doubt to arrive at certain knowledge. However, is it possible that this statement is inspired by Descartes' emphasis on rationality and critical thinking? Number 3, emotions belong to the scope of bodily functions. It is a common perception that people who factor in emotions in their activities and decisions are viewed to be less rational and therefore cannot be taken seriously. Do you agree? For me, no. I do not agree that people who consider emotion in their activities and decisions are less rational and cannot be taken seriously. Emotions are an integral part of the human experience and can influence our thoughts, behavior, and decision-making processes. Ignoring or suppressing emotion can lead to negative outcomes and affect mental health. However, it is important to balance emotions with rational thinking and critical analysis in decision-making. People who can effectively incorporate emotional intelligence into their actions and decisions can be viewed as thoughtful and well-rounded individuals. Number 4, I no longer think, there I no longer am. Is this accordance with Descartes thinking? This statement, I no longer think, therefore I'm no longer, is not in accordance with Descartes thinking. Descartes famously wrote cogito ergo sum, or I think, therefore I am. In his meditation on first philosophy, this statement expressed Descartes' belief that very act of thinking proves the existence of individual doing thinking. In contrast, the statement I no longer think, therefore I no longer suggests that the individual's existence is dependent on their ability to think. This is not consistent with Descartes' philosophy, which posits that existence is proven through the very act of thinking, regardless whether or not one is currently engaged in conscious thoughts. John Locke, 1631 to 1704. In his essay concerning human understanding, John Locke explained that the human mind is a tabula rasa, which means blank slate. The mind is empty. Birth is without rules for processing data, and that data is sick blank. According to Locke, impressions during infancy have very important and lasting consequence. He argued that the associations of ideas that individuals make when young are more important than those made later because they are the foundation of the self. While impressions during infancy serve as the foundation of development of the self, this does not mean that individuals can no longer unmake the negative effect, if not so good, earlier experience. Locke emphasizes the freedom of individuals to author their own soul. Individuals are free to define the content of their character except for the basic identity as a member of the human species. A human person cannot change the fact that he has 23 pairs chromosomes for that her nature, but can develop or change his character. John Locke's most famous works are an essay concerning human understanding, 1689, in which he developed his theory of ideas and his account of the origins of humans' knowledge and experience, in the two treatises of government, first edition published in 1690 but substantially composed before 1683, in which he defended the theory of political authority based on natural individual rights and freedoms and the consent of the governed. For discussion, number 1, John Locke argued that associations of ideas that individuals make when young are more important than those made later because they are the foundation of the self. What are the implications of these to parents and families regarding child care? John Locke believed that the associations of ideas that individuals make when they are young are the foundation of the self. This means that the child's early experience in the association they form during their formative years are crucial in shaping their future personality, behavior, and worldview. For the parents and families, this means the early childhood care and education are critical for child's development. Parents should provide safe, nurturing, and stimulating environment that promotes positive associations and experiences. This includes engaging with the child, providing opportunities for exploring and discovery, and encouraging positive social interactions. Number 2. Every man is certain respects like all other men, like some other men, like no other men. Henry Murray and Clyde Clockhan. This quote by Henry A. Murray and Clyde Clockhan suggests that all men have some similarities, some differences, and some unique characteristics that distinguish them from each other. In other words, while there are certain universal traits that are common to all human beings, there are also specific qualities that differentiate individuals from one another. Number 3. Explain the basis for John Locke's claim that no person can be subordinated to another. John Locke, an English philosopher and political theorist, believed that all human beings are naturally free and equal, and that no one has the right to subordinate or enslave another person. This belief was based on his view of natural rights, which he argued with inherent to all human beings by virtue of their existence. Immanuel Kant, 1724 to 1804. According to Kant, a human person has an inner and outer self which together form his/her consciousness. The inner self consists his/her of psychological state and national intellect. The outer self is a human person's senses and physical world. Like Saint Augustine, Kant sees the self as prone to corruption. Life is constant struggle between beauty and pleasure, between the inner self and the outer self. Kant lived during the Enlightenment period characterized by growing secularism and the weekend effect or religion replaced religion with reason. If Descartes is known for his I think therefore I am, Kant is known for his supreme principle of morality, the Kantian categorical imperative, act only according to that maxim by which you can at the same will that should become the natural law. Kant's most famous work, The Critique of Pure Reason, was published in 1781 and revised in 1787. Is it a treatise which seeks to show the impossibility of the sort of metaphysics and to lay the foundation for another? His other books included The Critique of Practical Reason, 1788, and The Critique of Judgment, 1790. Kant was the most foremost thinkers of Enlightenment, arguably one of the greatest philosophers of all time. In him were subsumed new trends that had begun with the rationalism, stressing reason of René Descartes, and the empiricism, stressing experience of Francis Bacon. He thus inaugurated a new era in the development of philosophical thought. For discussion, number 1, read René Descartes, John Locke, and Immanuel Kant again, then use the appropriate metacognitive marks given below on any part of the lesson given. It is not necessary to use all marks. René Descartes metacognized when he declared I think therefore I am, cogito ergo sum, and his essay Rules for the Direction of the Mind. And John Locke, he mentioned the concept of children reflecting on their own thinking process, which is the basis of metacognition, while Immanuel Kant is known for his supreme principle of morality and act only according that maxim by which you can at the same will that it should be become the natural law. Number 2. Get a partner and share your metacognitive marks. Explain why you use those metacognitive markers in those parts of the lesson. I'm having trouble concentrating on this task. I'm going to take a break and come back to later when I'm more focused. We choose the example because it demonstrates an important aspect of metacognition, the ability to recognize when one's own cognitive processes are not functioning optimally and to take steps to address that. In this case, the learner is aware that they are having trouble concentrating on the task at the hand, and rather than continuing to struggle with it, they are taking proactive steps to improve their focus before returning to the task. Question number 1. Who are the 3 modern philosophers? 3 points each. Number 2. Who are the 3 representative contemporary philosophers? 3 points each. Number 3. Who was the creative mathematician in the first order? 2 points. Number 4. What is the essay written by John Locke? 2 points. Number 5. Who was the most famous works in essay? 3 points.